Joining us now, ladies and gentlemen, is a man who probably has some thoughts on this entire conversation because they have seemingly figured it out better than possibly anybody in the history of the NFL. He's a Pennsylvania legend. He's a man who is currently the general manager of a team that is seeking to do something that no NFL team has ever done, which is win 3 straight Lombardis. And he's not resting on his Yannis. No. He's actually making plays in trades to better the team. Never been an executive of the year, but he's dancing in confetti multiple times. Ladies and gentlemen, the general manager of the Chiefs, Brett Veach.
How you guys doing?
Hey, sorry we made you wait there a little bit. We were having a full conversation about like coaches, GMs, how you build a culture, how you do all that, because it's obviously a big talking point with everything happening around the NFL. Feels like you guys have your culture and everybody that comes in there understands it. Is that an accurate depiction? And whenever you and Andy Reid start together, how does that become the culture that you have? Is it you? Is it Andy? Are you hands off on it? What is, you think, the biggest contributor to the culture you guys have in Kansas City right now, Brett?
Yeah, I certainly think the time that Coach and I have spent together, I mean, it dates back all the way to, I think 2006 we started working together, and not just Coach, but my relationship with obviously Coach Nagy, who I played college ball with, and Coach Spag. So there's a lot of respect and a lot of trust in this whole process here, and obviously it starts with Coach Reid, and it just trickles down.
Whenever you talk about the players buying in, obviously you have to have your superstars buy in for everybody else. Can you tell me about Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce this year, Chris Jones, all the OGs on your team, and how they operate and how it's kind of they're the ones that set the expectation for everybody else that comes in there?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it starts from the top, and you mentioned those guys, Pat, and those are guys that obviously that they're the best at what they do, but they also, they respect one another and they respect the process. And so when you have an off season and the multiple Super Bowl and league MVP is at every practice, and you have a guy like Travis Kelce who's traveling all over the world but still makes time to come back for the OTAs, and same thing with Chris Jones. I mean, all these guys know how important each step of the process is, and so when we bring in a new class of whether they're free agents or rookies, and they see that example set by those guys, everyone just kind of falls in line.
Got to feel good walking into a building that everybody's bought in. Speaking of being bought in and all in, you making moves at the trade deadline to bring in a living legend for a fifth round pick to get DeAndre Hopkins. Now, if you make it to the Super Bowl or play in the Super Bowl and DeAndre Hopkins plays at least 60% of the snaps, that'll move to a fourth rounder, but it'll probably be 31 or 32, obviously, which is basically early fifth round. First of all, did everybody know that D-Hop was available for a fifth rounder, like the Indianapolis Colts? And why did you know that he would be a great fit to your team?
Well, I think, it's funny, Pat, if you would have asked me back in August if we'd be sitting here at 9-0 and we'd be coming off a hard-fought victory versus a division opponent in the Broncos, and we would be led by Kareem Hunt and DeAndre Hopkins, I would have said you're crazy. But that's just the way the league works. And, DeAndre was a guy that I think a few years ago when he left Arizona, we tried to get him then. And obviously, we kind of got outbid there by Tennessee. But always a guy that from afar we've admired. And then, we had to come some obvious hurdles at the start of the season. Losing Rashee Rice there was a big blow for us. Fortunately, we had already signed Juju, who kind of played a similar role, and then Juju went down with a hamstring. So, credit to our personnel staff here. They picked up the phones and things got pretty serious pretty quick. And thankfully we're able to figure out something with Tennessee. But again, just a guy that obviously we've, tried to get for a few years here. And because of the injuries and because of the way that the season played out, we're able to get something done. So we were very fortunate and very lucky.
He's fun to watch. And, as people that are in the world of sports media now, there's obviously data and analytics and stats and everything at our disposal. Shout out to Hembo. D-Hop, what he's been great at is third down and red zone throughout his entire career. And it's like what seemingly was missing for you guys whenever you have some of the injuries is third down and red zone. So it's like, obviously the Chiefs make the perfect move and it ends up working out perfectly. And that's our expectations of you now. And I see you're wearing a Max Vanderstappen hoodie. Mm-hmm. Okay, I see you got the Verstappen hoodie on. Are you an F1 guy?
I am. Yeah, I am. I'm a motorsports guy. Obviously close with Clint Boyer, who's a NASCAR legend and a big Chiefs fan. So actually gonna see Clint in a few weeks down in Charlotte when we play down there. So all motorsports, all really competitive type deals I'm into. So, certainly F1 and Verstappen's at the top of the list. I joke with Pat, a little F1 saying, full send every week. And Pat loves that, and doesn't take much for him to get going either.
Amen. And I think he has a team, maybe. I don't remember. He was down there in Miami throwing balls into the top deck. Dolphins.
Pat and Travis have a piece of that Alpine team, and if you followed F1 last week in Brazil, Verstappen won, but the Alpines finished second and third. So there was actually high fives on the practice field before, or right after that race. So they were super excited about that.
Who won the race?
Verstappen won, and then the two Alpine cars finished 2 and 3. So they got the podiums, and when you finish so high in the standings, you get a lot more money for off season.
Yeah. Who won the race before that? In 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 the race before that?
Actually, the McLarens have been doing pretty good this year. So,
oh, cool.
All right.
He's right. There's a lot of parity.
Okay.
There's a lot of parity, just like the NFL.
No, well, what I was about to say is it's perfect that you're a Verstappen fan, because the Chiefs and Verstappen are simpatico whenever you talk about storylines. How does it feel to be in a position, though, that we just expect your team to make the right decision every single time and to win every single game? I assume that's a pressure that's earned, but every morning walking in, do you think about that stuff, or you just do your job?
Yeah, look, the expectations are there, and sometimes they're a little bit unrealistic, just given how tough this league is. I've been GM now for a little bit here now, and I don't think I've ever remembered going into a stadium and thinking, we're just going to go out there and dominate. Every game is tough, and every week is tough. And just in our division, we're 9-0, and obviously a lot of these games have been close. Probably our two most physical games were against the Chargers and the Broncos, and we still have to play those two teams again. We have obviously a huge game coming up against a fantastic team in Buffalo, and we still have to play the Texans. So the thing about this league is you're 9-0 one week, but if you take your foot off the accelerator, you can be 9-3, and so that's the way we approach it. And our whole goal is to be the best versions of ourselves week in and week out. And if we can stay healthy and play our best ball late, we'll have a shot. And that's really been the recipe the last few years. We've been able to stay healthy and just click late. This year, as opposed to the last few, we've had a little bit more on the injury side of things, and so that's why we just have to continue to just work through our roster and just get better any way we can.
You lose a couple games, guys on TV from Ohio or college football national champions, Super Bowl champions, they're going to say, fire that general manager.
Probably.
That's what happens. That's easy come, easy go in this world, Veach.
Yeah, absolutely.
AJ has a question for you.
Hey, what is it about Andy Reid that kind of, when you think of the Kansas City Chiefs, you think Andy Reid seems like the absolute perfect coach for that city, for the organization, for the roster you have? Like, what is it about Andy Reid you think that makes him so special and makes him the perfect guy for that job?
Well, he has a hard exterior, AJ, and so I think maybe people think one way about him, but the reality of it is, I think the reason why he is so successful is that he is very in tune with, the different style of players, and I say this many times. When I first met Andy back in the day in Philadelphia, it was kind of no nonsense, and it was his way or no way. He's able to adapt to this new generation of players, and he understands how to connect with these guys, and he does a great job of incorporating his assistant coaches to get some different ideas. And he's not one of those guys that always thinks he has the best idea or the right idea. He wants to take input from others, and he's also able to adapt and adjust to different style of players.
I love what you just said there about adapting and evolving and everything, because anytime you hear anybody talk about Chiefs team, they say it is old school, though. So he's able to adapt and evolve, but the accountability, everything. I think jerseys have to be tucked in at practice every single day. Like, there's a lot of old school traits while still evolving and connecting to the modern athlete. There's no wonder the guy's so good.
Yep.
And he's got that great mustache.
Fantastic.
Great mustache. That thing is phenomenal there. Now, he's not the only great coach that you guys have in Kansas City. Connor has a question for you.
Yeah, Brett, we were talking earlier about how, ownership can sometimes pay coordinators more to keep them, especially if they're, up for other jobs. When that happens, you guys have, Steve Spagnuolo, one of the best DCs in all football. After each season, when he's up for other jobs sometimes, will that be something you go to ownership like, hey, it is very much worth, paying Spagnuolo a little more money to keep him, or is that something kind of Spags and Andy Reid talk about?
Well, it's one of those things. Obviously, Coach Spags and Coach Reid have a long-standing relationship, but actually that happened last offseason. I think Spags had a chance to go to a few different organizations, and it just so happened that his contract was up, so it was perfectly played by Steve, and we were able to obviously pay him what he deserves. But no, that was something that we literally just had to go through last offseason, and we were fortunate that we were able to get Steve to stay here, and hopefully he's here for a long time, because just as fortunate as we are to have Coach Reid, same for Coach Spags. I mean, he's amazing, and certainly glad we have him here.
Let's talk about some of your players. Coach Pagano has a question for you, Brett.
Yeah, Brett, we talk a lot about culture. We talk a lot about character. When it comes to evaluating these players, I think we can all look at the tape and the metrics and see their skill set and see what they can do on the football field. And the hardest thing for me, when I was evaluating, and for anybody else, I think, is trying to figure out, okay, what makes this guy tick? What are the virtues? What are the football character things, like those 4 or 5 non-negotiable things when you guys go out and decide, okay, this guy fits from a position standpoint. He fits the type of scheme we're going to go. We're running offense, defense, but from a character standpoint, what are the non-negotiables, Brett?
Yeah, Coach. I mean, you made a great point there. I mean, I would say that if you ask all GMs across the league, they'd probably pretty much tell you the same thing, that when players don't reach their potential or they fail, it's probably has nothing to do with the ability. It's the person and the character and the wiring, and that's why obviously we spend a ton of time with our college scouts just getting to know a person. But we always look for full process players. I mean, everyone, I think, to a certain extent is going to love playing the games, but it's the guys that when we do our evaluation, we talk to obviously not just the coaches, but the trainers, the equipment people, just guys that love being in the building, guys that love every part of the process, guys that look forward to the off-season conditioning and the training and the weight room, and just are good teammates. And it sounds easy, as Coach. It's not always as easy, and players change, and depending on the city they're in and who they're surrounded by. I mean, they could change quickly, but typically guys will show you a trend of who they are through high school, through college. And, when you have guys that, again, just love that process and just love being in the building, those guys are typically the guys that always succeed.
That's so important to figure out before you draft.
Yeah.
Does this guy love ball or not? It all revolves around this loving ball, I think. Because if you love ball, everything else happens. You want to hang around ball. You want to study ball. Mm-hmm. You want to get stronger for ball.
What?
You want to get better at ball.
What?
If you love ball, I think it makes everything better. That's what we're trying to get to. Speaking of loving ball, you talked about him a little bit for traveling around the world. I mean, there's a superstar in that building. Patrick Mahomes, obviously, in a GOAT. Travis Kelce. Now, I know you don't think about this, but we do. He's representing football to the entire world.
Big time.
And he is doing a great job. He is an absolute gentleman. He is obviously incredibly supportive, and he's cool with not being the most popular person in his relationship, which I think is why Taylor being with a tight end from football is a perfect match. Perfect match. Now, with that being said, you just gave him a new contract. He's been around a long time. He is one of the leaders in there. How has it all gone from your perspective of Travis becoming this international superstar in literally everything he does being tracked and monitored? Have you had to adjust anything? Do you talk to him about life at all? And how do you kind of view it and how it's gone?
Well, the great thing about Travis is, it's funny because, I mean, given his relationship, and as you mentioned, Pat, he is the ultimate ambassador for this sport around the globe. I would say with him and Patrick, the cool thing about both those guys is that they really haven't changed. And they're guys that, again, going back to the college analogy, that they love being in the building. And I get so many questions asked about, the travel and the off season. And, if you didn't see it on the internet or Twitter, you really wouldn't believe it, because, I mean, the guy, like I said, he's always in the building. He does a great job of doing the extras, even for a guy that has played in this league for so long and has accomplished so much. I mean, he's always in the facility getting extra treatment, working with, the practice squad quarterbacks after practice, always doing the little things. And I think that those guys that do those things on a consistent basis, that's the reason why they have Hall of Fame careers, because, it's never good enough for either of them. And what I appreciate the most is just again, the people and the person and how they treat people in the building. You would never know that Travis and Patrick are the global icons they are. It's still yes sir, no sir. I laugh all the time because someone asked me about Pat and the evolution of him and just the fact that he's still one of those guys that answers his cell phone on the first ring. I mean, it's just rare and unique, but it just goes back to the point that you could surround them with superstars and money and all the accolades, but at the end of the day, they're just football players and they love playing football, and that's who they are, and it'll never change.
Hell yeah, boys. Thank you for doing that, boys. Thank you for representing our sport globally.
Keep it
and
going.
doing it in cool fashion. And not scared to be humans, too. Like Patrick will have a couple beers, talk some shit.
Sure. Yep.
Travis will talk some shit, have a good time. It's like, I think they are, I think they're fantastic. Shouldn't be legal that you're able to pay both of them plus everybody else. How does that work? So salary cap gymnastics, everybody talks about it. You guys are about to accomplish something, could accomplish something, in your eyes, obviously, and everybody in that building believe you, something that no NFL team has ever done. And you hear a lot of GMs and owners even say, like, well, with the money that we've allocated to different positions, we're not able to build up the roster as well. You have been able to continue to do that. Literally deal with contracts. You paid Patrick already. You paid Travis Kelce already. You paid Chris Jones. You've paid everybody and still have this team. Why do you think your team is still at the level it is with having to pay everybody? And what is the thing you look for whenever you're forecasting the future of the salary cap?
Well, I think we've been fortunate because we've had success in our last few drafts, and I think every organization that has a string of success, they're ultimately going to face some really tough decisions. And a few years ago, obviously, Tyreek was arguably the best receiver in this franchise has ever seen, and he was a guy that we obviously didn't want to lose. And so if you're going to make a move like that, then you're going to have to reinvent yourself. And I think so from navigating the draft through making the right decisions in free agency, and then as a team being able to re-identify yourself on a yearly basis. So, obviously when Pat took over in 18 and 19, I mean, we were scoring points left and right and winning through offense. And we had a Tyreek trade and we had to reinvent ourselves. And then we adding guys like Karlaftis and McDuffie. And, all of a sudden we got to a point where we became more defensive focused. And so I think just the cool thing is, though, that having Pat and having Coach Reed, they can play different styles of football on the offensive side. And, obviously we've shown in the past that we can air it out and outscore teams. And as, teams have adjusted to that style of play and, they've played us differently. I think we've shown over the years to, take care of the football, rely on our defense. And so I think it's a combination of, again, getting back to your original question, hitting on your draft picks and supplying the roster with consistent youth. And then when you do have tough decisions to make in free agency, just making sure you go through the process and have a backup plan, and then having that versatility and flexibility within your roster to play different styles of football to win in different environments.
Being able to win different ways has been the crazy part of your run. And I think Patrick Mahomes even said last year, like, I had to learn, like, we could just run the ball, punt, and win with our defense. And that once again goes back to, like, he shouldn't be as humble as he is. Mm-hmm. He shouldn't handle all the shit the way he does, but he does. Mm-hmm. And you got him and we don't. Thanks, Brett. AJ has a question for you.
You mentioned the draft and everything. Like, I'm curious with your, like, how collaborative are you around draft time with you and Andy Reid? How much are you talking lead up to the draft? And then when it comes like draft day, first round, which obviously you're usually picking at the very end, we know that. But let's say when you're really into it, second and third day, I guess, what's it like working with Andy Reid and the rest of your scouts, like, to figure out who you're actually pulling the trigger on? Because you guys seem to hit much more than you miss.
Yeah, we have a super collaborative process here. And again, it goes back to my relationship with Coach that, again, dates back to, early 2000s and mid 2000s. So, obviously Coach and I, we're probably at the point in our career where, in the off season, it's important for us to let him recharge and let him get back to the drawing board and get up there and get with our offensive staff and come up with new and creative plays. And so we certainly have dialogue, but I would say that, probably in the last 3 or 4 years, been heavy with the coordinators, and Coach is just does an amazing job of just turning his coordinators and offensive staff to us. And we get on the same page in regards to, what we need to make us better and what our current roster looks like. And, we have a ton of dialogue with the coaches. And I think from a process standpoint, our guys do a good job of, at the end of the day, we want to make it, important for the coaches to be involved. But again, keep in mind, these coaches are also putting together off-season plans, and they have a lot going on a schematic side. So I think over the years, we've done a really good job of just, as a staff, the first part is kind of trimming the fat, if you will, and just giving the coaches, hey, listen, these are the pool players we like. Here are the, day 1, day 2 players. Here's the day, rounds 3, 4, 5 players in the late round for agency players. And we kind of do a good job of just putting them into buckets and letting coaches work through a process. And a lot of times there's guys that we have in the second or third pool that the coaches really like, and it makes us take a harder look. And sometimes those guys get elevated. But I think that we've done a really good job of, first as a staff, identifying the guys that we like, and then giving the coaches those guys and let them kind of guide us and tell us what they see and then work together, as opposed to just giving all these coaches every player. I mean, it's impossible. I mean, Steve Spagnuolo can't watch 40 corners, but if we sit there as a staff and we cut 40 to 15, and then from 15 to 10 give Steve 10, his evaluation process is going to be a lot more accurate, and it's going to be a lot more meaningful for us. So I think we've done that, and coaches allowed us to do that with all the positions, and I think that's why we've been successful over the years.
And they feel happy to do it, especially if you follow through with what their recommendations are. Now, if you take all of their recommendations and go, all right, sweet, yeah, all right, no, we're going this way, then obviously there isn't the empowerment, the culture, the trust, everything like that. At what point did you guys say, hey, Tobe, we got a guy that'll run through somebody's face and then block a field goal to win it for you? Did you guys just, I assume you had that up on a board too. Hey, we're going to win this week by running through a guy's face, and then we're going to block a kick and we're going to celebrate. What a play by Chanel. What a phenomenal play. And then we've talked about it ad nauseum, and I think everybody has. This is obviously practiced, and this is something that is repped, and the amount of attention to detail to pull off something like this is indicative of the culture that you have. Can you talk about Tobe a little bit, how big of a weapon he is for that team that you guys have in Kansas City right now?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, Pat, all 3 phases, and that's what it takes to win games in this league. And Dave's, again, you talk about coach, and we've talked about Spags, certainly very fortunate and lucky to have them. But, I mean, Dave Tobe is as good as there is in the NFL, and he's been doing it for a long, long time. And like Steve and like Andy, he's just one of those guys that just the attention to details. And, with these games week in and week out, typically they come down to the last possession. They're always one-score games, and it's going to be those teams that execute the small details when it matters most. And, and also credit to Leo. I think Coach mentioned it in his post-game presser. He's just one of those guys that, we do have some big names on both sides of the football here, and he's not a guy that gets a ton of credit. But, I mean, from, as a Sam backer, setting the edge with this, his ability to blitz off the edge, and he's made a ton of key plays for us. I think back to the Niner game. I think Niners had a big drive going there. I think he had a pass deflection that, halted a drive. But he's one of those guys that he just does the little things, and he's very symbolic of this team in regards to just a guy that will just operate efficiently when it matters most, and he cares about the little details. And I think right before the end of the half, I think we almost got one of those, and maybe fortunately we didn't get that, because if you block that kick right before the half, they probably make changes sooner. And maybe that was the mastermind of Dave Tobe. Maybe that was the plan. Hey,
yeah,
get
just a little check. Just a little check. Yeah. Let's see if it's there or not. Yeah, it could be.
We might need that block later, but again, great special teams coach. And I mean, listen, he takes a lot of pride when we put together our final 53 a cut down day. I mean, Dave is the first guy knocking on my door, fighting for guys. And, certainly Leo Chanel was one of those guys that he's telling Spags, to limit his reps on defense because he needs them for all 4 phases of special teams.
I just, as you were giving your answer there, I don't know how this hasn't hit me sooner. Andy Reid, offensive guy, Hall of Famer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's running the offense. Defense, Spags, Hall of Famer?
For sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's running the defense. Tobe, running the special teams. Is that Hall of Famer?
Hall of Famer. Absolutely.
Holy shit. You guys got it all figured out over there. Jeez Louise. That just kind of smacked me in the face. Why is this team so good? Why do they always win? Why is it? You guys got Hall of Famers falling out of the closets over there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Good for you. And you're going to be. Good for you, Brett.
Oh yeah.
Good for you. Good for you. That's awesome.
Makes it easy for sure.
Yeah, why doesn't everybody do that?
Sure.
Why doesn't everybody just do that entire thing? But with all that being said, it is a little different life. Ty has a question for you.
Yeah, Brett, you talk about reimagining the team through free agency and even at the trade deadline. It seems like whenever there is like a marquee aging superstar, you guys are mentioned as a team. Hey, he wants to either get there or the Chiefs are interested in him. We saw it this year. Obviously you end up getting DeAndre Hopkins, but then Cooper Kupp is linked to going to the Chiefs as well. When you get in a situation like that, is it more difficult or easier when Kansas City becomes a location for guys to want to go ring chasing? Because obviously you kind of have your pick of the litter of all these good players, but then you also have to potentially limit, hey, if we bring this guy in, we run the risk of, ruining our culture.
Well, I think, to the first part of your question, it certainly makes it easier from the standpoint of, I think in general, most players want to be here. And typically when you get to different points of the season, whether that be in the off season or at the trade deadline. And, I think we do hear a lot of, if everything is equal, he would love to play in Kansas City. So I think that, playing for Coach Reid and playing with Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Chris Jones, I think it would certainly be a destination for any player that had a chance to potentially move on and go somewhere else. It is difficult though, just because when you do have a lot of these higher paid contracts that, we only have so much flexibility and wiggle room. And it's a little tricky too, because when you have a player like Pat Mahomes and your goal is to every year, make playoffs and compete, there's that fine line of, being aggressive, but also understanding, how you're going to put this team together in the future. For example, we have a pretty good roster. Again, a lot of football left, and, we'll see how the season plays out. And hopefully we can stay healthy and have a shot toward the end. But looking forward to the offseason, we're going to have some really good players that are free agents. You talk about Trey Smith and Nick Bolton and Justin Reed, and just to name a few. The reality of it is it'll be hard to, retain all those guys. Hopefully we have a chance to retain a couple. But with that being said, it will be hard to navigate, a free agency class, if you will, because you won't have that kind of money because it's tied up into current players and hopefully players that you can keep and retain. So, the bulk of your free agency or the bulk of your acquisitions are going to come from your draft. And so, it's that fine line of, players, older players wanting to come here, but also knowing that they come with a contract, and also you're going to have to pay a draft pick to get them there. And also know that you might not have money in free agency to spend next year, and you're going to be relying on those draft picks. So it's, that's why we were fortunate we were able to, execute a trade with Tennessee that gives us some flexibility. We can retain our top, our first, second, third round pick. And listen, we hope it is a fourth round pick, because that means we're winning. But we also have to be mindful of what's on the horizon, not having a ton of money to spend in free agency, and really have to rely on those draft picks. So it's one of those things that I don't think from a culture standpoint we're concerned, because we have Coach Reid and the bar set super high. And I think there's an expectation, just like when Bill Belichick had players back in the day with New England. They've always found ways to make it work. And I think by and large, we'd be able to do that too here, because of the culture here and because of the players we have here. I think the more difficult thing is just, the assets required, to get these players. Or the assets needed to acquire these players is a difficult part for us, just because, you have one eye on the future and, one eye on the current season. But we try to be aggressive. And I would say this year, obviously knowing what's at stake, we've tried to kick that into gear. And, we were able to add Hopkins, we were able to add Uche, and, we had conversations with New Orleans about Lattimore, and, Washington stepped up to the plate, and a 3 and a 4, that's a lot, especially for a team that, in the Chiefs that are going to need those picks next year. But, we were certainly in those conversations too. So we're going to be as aggressive as we can, but also, try to be as responsible as we can.
As you broke that all down, sounds so easy, man. Figure it out.
Yeah. Come on.
Figure it out, man. It all sounds so easy. You made a trade on draft night last year, and obviously that made some waves because it was with a rival. So I ask you this weekend, are you just going to walk over to Bean and punch him in the face?
No, certainly not.
What's that about? I thought we had a rivalry.
Do it.
Let's punch each other in the face. Let's do that.
those guys are awesome. And Coach McDermott's another guy that I've worked with in Philadelphia too. So I mean, Coach Reed has that tree of coaches that never seem to end. But class organization and just an awesome opponent. And every year, you feel like Lamar and Josh Allen. I mean, those are the teams that you have to go through. We had to do that last year, and it was very difficult. And it's no different this year. I mean, those teams will be the teams we have to go through, and you throw in a Pittsburgh and throw in a Houston. It's a gauntlet, and a ton of respect for Buffalo, and as coaches say, look forward to the challenge.
I think you forgot a team, the Indianapolis Colts.
Oh,
the Indianapolis Colts.
Well, listen,
we got it all in front of
they're
them.
all good. They're all good.
They're all good.
They're all good.
They are.
Listen, I started the conversation by telling you our two most physical games were against the Chargers and the Broncos, and we have to play both those teams.
Yeah,
throughout the season. So I mean, there's never an easy week in this league.
Have you seen? This is the last question, and I think it's very important. Have you seen any of the clips of Jim Harbaugh coaching Justin Herbert that have been making their way around the internet from Mic'd Up?
Yeah. No, he's a lot of fun, and that's the thing you love about Coach Harbs is he's always been like that. And I saw he dropped the one in pregame there. It was all over the internet too. He's an intense person, and look, you can tell. I mean, that's like I said, we got a win when we went down there earlier and played, but we came home and we had to lick some wounds because we were pretty beat up after that game. Lost a couple players, and again, he installs a physical brand of football, and their quarterback is awesome, but they're going to keep adding weapons there. But I'll tell you what, their defense is really, really good.
Yeah, this is Jim Harbaugh football right here.
Uh-huh.
This is what they do. You guys too, though.
Yeah.
Kansas City Chiefs have reinvented themselves multiple times. I'm excited to see what the team looks like, not only the end of this year, but going forward. Good luck on your pursuit of history for the NFL for 3 straight Lombardis, and thank you for your time. You're the man.
Always appreciate you guys for having me on, and look forward to catching up again soon.
Okay. You ever been to an Indy car race?
No, but I'm going to go this year.
I would like to invite you to the Indy 500. I would like to invite you to the Indy 500 just so you can experience some racing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's one of those deals where, just the time of the season, there's always something going on in the off season, but I actually definitely going to get there this year. I think Kyle Larson's running again too, a NASCAR guy. And, he's doing that double again, the Indy and the Coke 400. So definitely want to go there. Want to see the Indianapolis 500. It's a bucket list item for me, and definitely want to see Kyle kind of break through and have a NASCAR guy win that thing.
Kyle, well, I don't think that's going to happen. Okay, but nonetheless.
It's about racing.
We have it on tape now, so hopefully when we get there, we can replay this.
Hey, Kyle was like learning the race through the race, watching the Indy 500. He lap 10, I think he accidentally downshifted, didn't even, dropped out some spots. And then there was a move I think he made in maybe lap 40 or something that was bad move, got back in there. And he's talking to his team, and towards the end, he was making a run. He was literally learning IndyCar throughout the Indy 500, and then weather messed up the Coca-Cola thing down there in Charlotte. But he is welcome, as are you. We can't wait to see you. Good luck the rest of the way, Brett.
Awesome. Thank you guys again. I appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, General Manager of the Kansas City Chiefs, Brett Veach.
Yeah, Brett.